I'm going to talk about attracting private sector investment to decarbonise healthcare estates. If there was a lot of trust here, I'd be saying, well, actually, what can we do for you? But I'll leave it with this context because you're all here as well. So the challenge that the NHS are facing, so we know that they need to reach net zero by 2040 for their directly controlled emissions, and then 80% reduction by 2032. And then the other ones, for the emissions they can influence, to reach net zero by 2045. A lot don't know how to get here. The challenge is the infrastructure, the funding and the resource that they have internally. I'm coming at this from a heat networks perspective, so I will explain who Hemiko are. This will come later on, but I want to land this message first and how a heat network can help with this situation. So in Hemiko, this is how we see a heat network developing. So I think everyone here will know heat networks have tended to be privately led by developers, and they're sort of a small, what I would call a communal heating system, not a district heat system. So what we're doing working to do at the minute is connect up various different off-takers and generators. So we're talking to wastewater treatment plants, energy from waste plants, data centres, and then talking to the anchor loads and the off-takers within the region. And this is what we see, emulating what they're doing in the Nordics and a true district heat network. And cities are a more attractive place for industry, data centres, everything, job creation, when you are building up these low carbon green heat skills. So why a heat network? So economic growth, decarbonisation, cost effectiveness, emissions and public health. We're removing a lot of boiler flues and gas, energy efficiency, quite importantly for trust, the electrical network demand. There's a lot of grid constraints that we see, and heat networks can actually reduce that rather than individual air source heat pumps. And unfortunately, government policy is going to make you do it soon as well. In the right places, we know heat networks are 40% cheaper than heat pumps. Some places they won't be, it's not one size fits all. We can also help with that demand, but in most places, heat networks are important. But the main thing with heat networks is you need the off-takers, and they need to grow. They need to be bigger than what we've done before. And I think there's a target of like £20 billion just to get to 18% or something. We've got 1 billion of that to give, so we need another 20 companies to put in that. I've used this as an example because it's quite a good example to show where, and this is a SEF project, we were talking on this, so where you can see with the normal project is the green, so that was an air source heat pump proposed, and then where you can look at going if you've got an EFW connection, and it's a huge drop you can see. And now these take a lot of feasibility, so where we're looking a lot at the moment with our city schemes is started off with air source heat pumps and then pumping in all these different heat network connections, but you can see the benefit that these district heat networks can have. So where will the heat come from? We're looking at wastewater treatment works, manufacturing plants, data centres, breweries, heat pumps, mine water sewers, etc. Some of these are more proven than others, if we're talking sewer source, but we are investing in the feasibility to do this. So you guys know, if you're a trust, what is a heat network zone? So in England, a heat network zone is an area where a heat network is most cost-effective way to decarbonise heating. And as you see down here, there's various different heat network zones. Most of you here will have seen what these throw out. We believe that if you look at Birmingham, for example, there's like 40 different heat network zones. There should probably only be 5. And that's what, a true district heat network looks like. And we're working with government and with local authorities and trusts to look at these and where they sit within the heat network zone. So, what if, and now this has come up a lot in conversation today, so what if my hospital is outside of a city centre? What if it's not directly in the zone? Well, what we're trying to do, and the point of this talk, is that we can get you from A to B. So we find the generators on the end, and we look at you as an anchor load into a pioneer network. What we will do is that bit in between. Now we're looking at some networks where we're taking a pipe run 5-10 kilometres from a hospital or to a huge heat loader on the end from an energy from waste plant. What we will do, and what I think trusts and local authorities don't have the resource to do, is connect all them bits up internally, and this is what the private sector can bring. We will have dedicated connections managers. I'm the head of connections at Hemiko, and their job is to find off-takers, and that's residential, private, public. That is their job to do that, and we can't expect public sector to be employing teams of 10, 20 people to go and do this. This is what the private sector brings, and I know my competitors do this as well. The difference with the heat network market is there's not a huge amount of players in. Some of the big ones are sitting here right in front of me right now. But there's a huge pie, and it's about collaboration and getting us to there. And there will be some vital networks and Veolia networks that we pass on our way if we're doing this kind of thing and invest in 100 million. But we can help you decarbonise as you can do for our heat networks. And this is what I think, is really important for trust, that it takes that off your hands. And I was talking to her just earlier to say, well, the heat network's gone quiet. What do we do now? We really want to connect to this. We can do that, and we're the bridge of the gap between all of that. So the opportunity, so what role can the private sector play? So again, we connect the off-takers and generators around you. We will also apply for the funding to make a heat network connection even more cost effective. What we will do as well is we will invest in the feasibility around mine water and sewer water and wastewater treatment plants, whereas trusts don't necessarily have the money to sink £1 million into a couple of boreholes. Now we will look to utilise the government funding, but equally within our own funding, to get that opportunity off the ground and create a hub from the heat network. And it takes the risk off hospitals and allows you to focus on patients while we provide the resilient heat supply. The message here is, so what role do NHS trusts and healthcare play? So to attract the investment, investors like us need to know where there will be connections. The anchor load, the heat loads, an NHS trust, a healthcare estate can be an anchor load within itself. Some estates might have 10 buildings on there. That's enough for a district heat network alone, and a lot of them have land where you can site energy centres, and these things can actually become an income generator for trusts once we get them off the ground. And we know the bad word CHP, a lot of trusts have these. We can also look at using that as resilience to a network. And I think the message for trusts here is we won't just be looking for one heat source. There's a stigma around heat networks that they make hospitals less efficient. They don't. They make them more resilient. There's big thermal stores, there's multiple customers on this, whereas an individual air source heat pump on your estate, there's multiple points of failure. So what we do at Hemiko, so we focus on heat networks, but we also provide and invest in cooling, private wire, renewable energy generation, energy efficiency retrofit service, and heat as a service. So we're really recognising now that putting solar on the top of an air source heat pump, energy centre, using that to charge the air source heat pump, etc., is very beneficial. And I think it's important when we're talking about local authorities and public sectors, NHS, all of this, that this brings benefits to the local economy. So local subcontractors, we employ locally, we deliver on social value. We've got a hospital we're looking at in Worthing where we're building a green garden for them, a green wall, and we're making it more pleasant for their staff and their patients. And this is net zero standards that were published by NHS England in February 2023. Now they say there that NHS trusts should be taking advantage of planned heat networks across the country and be identifying themselves as anchor loads. Well, if they're going to put that statement out there, then they also need to help the procurement, and we are working with DESNZ and NHS England on how we make it easier for trusts to access this, because procurement is always a big thing. So the policy and legislative landscape is changing, so a lot of trusts will say to me, well, if we connect to a heat network, are we going to then be locked in for 25, 30, 60 years, 80 years if you're somewhere in the southwest of the country? But no, because how this has to work is that we are looking to invest as an infrastructure investment company. We're looking to invest as the National Grid does in gas and electricity networks, who are a private company, I will say. And then we will provide heat as a service, heat supply agreements to public sector buildings, private buildings. It may be a minimum term of 5 years, something along those lines. They can then disconnect from that should they wish to. And they'll pay us like they pay for their utilities. So who are we? We're an experienced heat network investor and developer. We've been involved in over 100 projects. We're investing £1 billion into heat networks between now and 2030, and our vision is to develop town and city scale heat networks. We were previously called Pinnacle Power, for those that knew them. That's us now. And this is a rebrand as part of that investment. And we deliver end-to-end solutions. And I think the importance is that attracting that private sector investment and someone of the specialist in this area, we will pick up all of these bits along the way. We know about the operation and maintenance, we know about the retrofits. So some examples, so I spoke about resilience. So we provide heating to Springfield Hospital in Tooting. It's a funded solution, and we have an in-house operations team who ensure that we deliver the best performance. We have KPIs against this. You can't let a hospital go down. You're looking after people, you know, and it's super important to have this resilience there. This is the Worthing Heat Network, where we are connecting Worthing Hospital, and it's worth saying that, you know, I think when thinking about PSDS, people think we must put in an air source heat pump. Well, Worthing Hospital are using their PSDS to fund a heat network connection, and I think that message needs to be clearer into the market, that the funding is there. And we don't need to do the retrofit works. You know, as I mentioned earlier, we see this as a bulk heat supply to decarbonise. And the benefit of heat networks on this, yes, retrofits will need to be done, but arguably we're not going to say to a hospital you have to be giving it as 40 degrees. We're giving it, you have to deal with it, because that's like, you know, tens of millions of pounds. We're being innovative about the way we're doing this. Cardiff City Council, we're working, so this is taking it from a Viridor energy from waste plant. We're working with the council there. The interesting thing about this is you'll often talk to universities or NHS trusts, or how are you going to get across that river, or how are you going to get across that railway. We are building we're building a bridge to take the pipes over the railway in Cardiff, and we're investing in that. And I think this is the point around private sector investment, is we are paying, you know, we are putting the money there, the Green Heat Network Fund, we're investing in the expansion. And we are an experienced heat utility. A lot of local authorities who will be talking to NHS trusts have taken on this responsibility by themselves, but also don't have the expertise to be ESCOs. We will do that, and we will invest in doing that. So key takeaways I want from this. So don't wait for really clear plans to emerge on energy. Heat networks tend to be a low regrets choice. I know some people don't quote me on that, don't come back and ask me a question on that. And you can offer your hospital up as an anchor load, and we will build the heat network around you. Don't do extensive feasibility work, and I hope there's no consultants listening to this right now, but we can do that for you. And often if something's done on a desktop, we'll rip it up. We've been stung in the past where you can't go down this route, and you can't do that, and you can't do this. And talk to us early on, talk to these private sector. And if you can't, there's a rule around procurement, and I said this earlier, put something out on the procurement portal and say, we're interested in a low carbon heat network, come and talk to us. You don't have to go through a 6 to 12 month REBA stage 2, 3 feasibility to get this done. Just put it out there, and you'll have the likes of us, Vital, Vattenfall, SSE, all of these players in the market, Veolia, come to you and offer you, and you can keep that competitive tension there. And just to note, we want competition in this market, you know, it keeps us on our toes, and it means it's competitive. We don't want to be sweeping it all up, as I hope viewers don't. And I think the main message is, what we can do is, if we connect you to an energy from waste plant, and we connect up a whole community along the way, we take that wasted heat from the city, the town, from energy from waste, and we have multiple heat sources going into that. And this is access you may not otherwise get, and private sector investment can open that and unlock that door for you and do the connection, because we have a dedicated team that will connect you along the way, as do all of the other players in this industry. And I speak for them all when I say, you know, they all bring these same expertise, and if not talking directly to Hemiko or another, I urge you to do that light touch procurement, or just find people in the network, because if you get that partner in, then you have more chance of decarbonising the whole area around you, and you can be a catalyst for that. Thank you. Any questions? Perfect presentation then. Thanks.